Winter has settled over the northern plains, hard, merciless, and unrelenting. The great alliance that once moved like a single heartbeat now strains under the weight of hunger, fear, and the long shadow of war. Whispers drift through the camps, old loyalties bend, new doubts take root, and in the center of it all stands Crazy Horse, a man caught between the fading dream of a free northern nation and the tightening grip of a world closing in. This chapter follows him into one of the most fragile moments of his life, a season when unity fractures, choices narrow, and the path forward grows colder than the wind sweeping the Tongue River. The storms he faces now are not only those of battle, but of spirit, leadership, and the heavy cost of carrying a people's hope. This is Chronicles of the Old West, Episode 7 of our series, Spirit of the Thunder People, The Life of Crazy Horse.
The wind howled across the frozen plains like a grieving widow, carrying snow that stung the face and blinded the eye. It was the moon of frost in the teepee, late December 1876, and the great alliance Crazy Horse had forged, the northern nation, hung by a thread as brittle as the ice on the Tongue River. For months, his Akachita, the warrior police, had enforced a unity born of desperation. But now, within hours of sending a decoy force to lure the soldiers north, that solidarity began to crack. 2 Lakota riders dismounted in the Miniconjou and Sans Arc villages. They carried packages of tobacco wrapped in blue and red cloth, clear signs of their purpose. These were envoys from the reservation, Important Man, and Fool Bear, come to talk surrender. Relatives of hostages held by Colonel Nelson Miles at Cheyenne River, they spoke of the prisoners' plight, the biting privations of winter, and the cold logic of laying down arms. Talks rippled through the villages. Crazy Horse made no personal attack on the messengers, but the Oglala response was swift, furious, and unyielding. The Cheyenne war leaders, men like Ice and 2 Moons, firm in their support of the Oglala war chief, stood with them. The Cheyennes and Oglalas would not listen, the envoys later reported, and abused us very much. In a council led by Red Bear of the Sans Arcs, the deciders probed the terms. Uncomfortably, the envoys admitted they were unconditional. All ponies and arms must be surrendered. The unease in the teepee was palpable, a low murmur of fear and resentment. Politely but firmly, the tobacco was rejected. Yet away from the public councils, in the private glow of family fires, doubt festered. Many admitted their terror of what lay ahead. White Eagle, a Sans Arc headman with kin among the hostages, had tried repeatedly to slip away with his 4 teepees, only to be turned back by Akachita. The war front's grip felt dictatorial, but the fear of punishment ran deeper. And everywhere, Crazy Horse's name was spoken as the unyielding architect of total resistance. Then, in one tense teepee, the door flap flew open. Crazy Horse stooped inside, flanked by bodyguards. In a village not his own, without the authority of the deciders, he openly threatened both envoys and their hosts. We would never be allowed to take anyone from that camp, the shaken messengers later recounted. If any left, they would be followed and killed. The intervention was astonishing, heavy-handed. Important Man and Fool Bear went to ground, engineering a secret escape. Around December 25th, 13 lodges stole away under cover of night. They had not gone far when Crazy Horse appeared with warriors. Little Big Man and the Oglala Akachita were at his side, Horses were shot, arms and goods seized. If you want to go to the whites, go on, they were told, but without mounts. In deep snow, return was the only survival. This unprecedented move hardened hearts against Crazy Horse among the Miniconjos and Sans Arcs. Attitudes soured. Through the first half of January 1877, leadership began to shift. Dissatisfaction with the war chief's iron rule spread like frost on a lodge pole. Meanwhile, far downstream, the decoy warriors had done their work. They stole 150 head of cattle near Tongue River Cantonment. Miles took the bait. In bone-chilling cold, 30 below zero, he led 436 officers and men, 2 artillery pieces, and a supply train up the Tongue River. Huddled in buffalo coats and sealskin gauntlets, Bearcoat's command pressed forward. Crazy Horse's plan was audacious. The villages themselves would act as decoys, drawing Miles into the rugged foothills of the Wolf Mountains. On January 8, 1877, the clash came at dawn near Belly Butte. Cheyennes showed themselves on a ridge. Miles spotted the massed movement and readied his lines. Crazy Horse divided his force. Cheyennes crossing to the east bank of the frozen Tongue, Lakotas pressing down the west. At 7 in the morning, with Winchesters cracking, the warriors charged like the thunder at the Rosebud, racing along the bluffs, seeking to outflank the soldiers. War whistles shrilled, ponies thundered across snow, but Miles's artillery spoke, shells bursting in midair, shrapnel screaming among the riders. Ponies reared and fell. Crazy Horse's own war pony, the last of 9 to die beneath him, that bitter campaign, was shot out from under the chief. He scrambled up behind a comrade as the first wave withdrew. The fight shifted to the East Bank heights. Warriors seized ridges and bluffs, pouring fire from boulders and cedar thickets. Big Crow, the Cheyenne, capered defiantly across the crest, sniping with his Springfield from the Little Bighorn fight. Miles sent Captain James Casey's Company A storming uphill. Crazy Horse and his men flattened behind rocks, then charged on foot as the soldiers crested the ridge. Carbines became clubs in the swirling snow. Hand-to-hand fury erupted, brief, brutal, before the warriors disengaged. For 5 hours, the battle raged in a gathering blizzard. Infantry lines held firm, volleys ripping into the whiteout. Artillery thundered. By noon, under iron skies that felt like night, the warriors withdrew to Wall Creek. Crazy Horse screened the retreat with a handful of comrades, 10 men falling back as rear guard. It was a tactical stalemate, another hard-fought stand. Miles lingered 2 days at Belly Butte before withdrawing. Historians would later call it a defeat for Crazy Horse. But to the warriors, it was no rout. They had matched infantry on commanding heights, an anomaly for plains fighters. Short-term, it even lifted spirits. Hunters found buffalo. Feasts followed. Then, on January 15th, Sitting Bull arrived with 100 Hunkpapa lodges and precious ammunition. Feasts and councils roared back to life. The 2 great leaders propounded total resistance. Tales of agency arrests steeled the wavering. Sitting Bull redistributed Métis goods, cartridges for warriors, blankets, and beads for the women, tobacco for the elders. Black Shield, the old Miniconjou fighter, lent his voice to the war front. But beneath the celebrations, fractures deepened. Private feasts whispered of surrender. Roman Nose recruited moderates, including Crazy Horse's kinsman Touch the Clouds. and sent secret messengers to Spotted Tail. Others spoke warmly of life at Cheyenne River. Red Horse, Crazy Horse's own brother-in-law, told the war chief he recognized the president as his great father. Divisions crystallized. Sitting Bull leaned toward Canada, where buffalo still roamed, and the red-coated police offered a different path. By late January, as deep snows locked the valleys and game grew scarce, the camps split. Sitting Bull led 50 lodges north, with many more, led by Spotted Eagle, preparing to follow. Crazy Horse's response carried bitterness and a new fatalism. The soldiers are everywhere. This is the end. Someday I shall be killed. Well, all right. I am going south to get mine. The parting was melancholy. The two men who had bridged so many divides would never meet again. Mass defections followed. Red Sack was sent to Red Cloud Agency. Warriors seized arms and ponies from fleeing lodges, but relatives secretly outfitted them. White Eagle defied the cordon. Little Wolf faced down Akachita and led his people away, swearing vengeance. By early February, the once mighty host had shattered. Only about 370 lodges remained, mostly Oglala and Cheyenne, many doubled up in ragged shelters. Crazy Horse's own following withered. He proposed moving east to join Sitting Bull. Few listened. The main village turned west toward the bighorn buffalo herds. Only 10 lodges, his closest blood and adopted kin, followed the war chief to a lonely camp on Powder River at Clear Fork. Worm, Red Feather, Black Shawl, the massive Tall Bull, and a handful of others. There, in the bare timber, they hunted deer and elk, suspended for a few days from the weight of war. It was a time of reckoning. The Hunkpatila band itself had fractured. Widows and elders suffered terribly. Black Shawl's cough had returned. Surveying the cost of unyielding resistance, Crazy Horse drew back. To hold our land, the pledge he had given Sitting Bull, now seemed an unbearable weight carried alone. Peace envoys arrived around February 11th. Hunts the enemy and his party brought tobacco and proposals from Crook and the agencies. To their surprise, Crazy Horse was gracious. He listened, stalled politely, and ultimately deferred to the will of the people. He did not commence the war, he told them. His relations were at the agencies. He would let them say. He sent them on to the main village with horses from his own herd. The main Oglala Council soon voted to open talks at Red Cloud Agency. Spotted Tail himself prepared a massive peace mission with major concessions dangled by Crook. Crazy Horse called for a rendezvous on the Little Powder, briefly gathering 110 more lodges. But the momentum was gone. No one else answered his runners. His following shrank to 2 lodges. As March dawned, the war chief felt the pull of the Wakan powers. He purified in the Sweat Lodge, embraced the old disciplines. About March 5th, with Black Shawl and one other family, he vanished into the snowy hills between the forks of the Powder River. For 3 weeks, he would seek a vision in the vast, empty wilderness, hoping the thunder beings would grant him guidance in this, the greatest crisis his people had ever faced. The northern nation was breaking apart. The blue-coated soldiers were coming again. And Crazy Horse, once the thunderbolt of the plains, rode now into solitude, carrying the shattered dream of freedom. The wind whispered through the barren hills east of Powder River, a lonely song across snow-crusted ridges that straddled the Wyoming-Montana line. For 3 weeks in March 1877, Crazy Horse vanished into that vast emptiness. He carried only his pipe and tobacco bag, fasting, praying, weeping, beneath overhangs and in shallow caves as late winter storms howled around him. The vision quest was a desperate appeal to the Wakan powers for guidance. How to preserve the hunting grounds, how to lead what remained of the northern nation through the gathering darkness. One brief encounter pierced the solitude. The Black Elk family, hurrying toward surrender, stumbled upon his lonely camp. We found Crazy Horse all alone on a creek with just his wife, the account remembered. He was a strange man. He had been strange all of that winter. To Black Elk's father, he spoke quietly. "Uncle, you might have noticed me, how I act, but it is for the good of my people that I am out alone. Out there, I am making plans. Nothing but good plans for the good of my people. This country is ours. Therefore, I am doing this." He returned gaunt and hollow-eyed around March 26th, the end of his Hanblicheya, coinciding with the close of Spotted Tail's sweeping peace mission. The main Oglala Cheyenne village had moved to the Powder River Valley. Envoys from the agencies pressed their case. 7 Cheyennes and 3 Oglalas spoke of good treatment, of rations and blankets, of no punishment for past fighting. Iron Hawk, the herald, captured the weary consensus. "You see, all the people here are in rags. We might as well go in." Eyes turned to Crazy Horse. They expected thunder from the man who had meditated alone in the wilderness. Instead, he sat silent. At last, he spoke the words that sealed a chapter of Lakota history. Crazy Horse said whatever all the rest decided to do, he would do. The pipe was smoked. The village would go to Bear Lodge Butte, then on to Red Cloud Agency. Yet the war chief's spirit still flickered with defiance. Learning that Lame Deer had refused surrender and planned one final buffalo hunt, Crazy Horse slipped away the next morning with Black Shawl, Low Dog, and a small band. For several days they zigzagged across the plains, searching for game and for renewed purpose. The reunion with Lame Deer brought only anticlimax, 14 lodges, no grand strategy, just one more hunt before inevitable capitulation. News from the north confirmed Sitting Bull's final push toward Canada. More arrivals only deepened the futility. Through it all, Black Shawl's condition worsened. The bloody cough that had first appeared during their courtship had returned with savage force. Tuberculosis, the white man's wasting sickness, fed by cold, hunger, and exhaustion. Her strength ebbed daily. Crazy Horse, ever solicitous of his wife, felt the pull of responsibility. The new power granted during his vision quest, the spotted eagle whose rights were known to heal such afflictions, could only be tested by returning her to the care of relatives and the modest security of agency life. Around April 3rd, the tiny party turned south. They rode quietly into the great circle of teepees at Bear Lodge Butte, pitching their lodge between those of Iron Whiteman and Little Hawk. The Hunk Patila segment welcomed them home. For the first time in months, the village, now some 155 lodges and nearly 1,000 souls, began to rest, hunt, and let the spring grass restore their gaunt ponies. Crazy Horse seemed listless at first, sunk in despair. All is lost anyway. Oral tradition recalls him thinking, the country is lost, But as envoys continued to arrive and the deciders pressed the practical realities, something shifted. He listened to promises of a northern reservation on the Tongue and Bighorn rivers. He heard of the new Great Father in Washington, Rutherford B. Hayes, a war comrade of General Crook's. Slowly, pragmatically, the war chief who had denied any kinship with the Wasatch government began to see a path through diplomacy. In a council held in his honor around April 10th, he rose briefly. "This day I have laid my gun aside, and I have sat down." He spoke of giving ammunition to his people and securing a place for them. He even agreed to travel to Washington with a delegation. The decision was made. On April 16th, the village struck camp and began the long march east. Red Cloud's 80-man deputation met them near the Pumpkin Buttes around April 20th. The old chief handled the tense reunion with skill, reassuring them of no arrests, explaining the surrender of stock that would later be redistributed. When asked about guns, Crazy Horse replied simply, "All right, let them have them." Yet, beneath the surface, misgivings simmered. To direct questions, he snapped defensively, warning them not to press him. In a dark moment, he said, "I am aware that I will not live." Still, the march continued in generally good spirits. At one council, in a gesture of profound reconciliation, Crazy Horse spread a buffalo robe for Red Cloud and placed his own war shirt over the agency chief's shoulders. The symbolic transfer of primacy was complete. Lieutenant W.P. Clark, White Hat, rode out with scouts to meet them on the morning of May 6th. 5 miles from the agency, the column halted. Crazy Horse, mounted on a white pony, led the headman forward. He dismounted and sat deliberately on the ground. Clark approached. 5 minutes of silence passed between them. Then the lieutenant offered his hand. Crazy Horse shook it left-handed, saying through interpreters, "Cola, I shake with this hand because my heart is on this side. I want this peace to last forever." He dog followed with his own magnificent gesture, draping his war shirt and headdress on Clark and presenting his war pony and pipe. The pipe of peace was smoked. Clark spoke of a lasting peace, washed clean by the previous night's rain. Arms and ponies would be surrendered. Rations would follow. Names would go to the Great Father. The village moved forward, singing the great song of peace, a stately, triumphant procession rather than a broken retreat. Warriors formed companies. Women and children followed with travois and loose stock. At 2 p.m, they reached the bottomland along White River, north of Red Cloud Agency. Teepees rose quickly. The great herd, more than 2,200 head, was counted and surrendered to Oglala scouts who promised its return. That afternoon and evening, Clark, with interpreters and a few officers, moved through the camp, collecting weapons. Crazy Horse led the way, laying down a rifle. In all, 114 firearms were surrendered. The people remained calm, even cooperative, won over by Clark's firmness and respect. As dusk settled, Frank Gruard, old friend and scout, visited Crazy Horse's teepee with Lieutenant John Bourke. The war chief, lithe and sinewy, looked younger than his years, despite the careworn face. In the firelight he appeared quiet, rather morose, dogged, tenacious, and resolute. Yet when he recognized Gruard, his features lit with genuine pleasure. He gave Bourke a hearty handshake. Night fell on May 6th, 1877. The northern nation had come in, not broken in spirit, but choosing the uncertain path of peace with dignity. Crazy Horse had surrendered his arms, his freedom of movement, and, most painfully, his dream of an unconquered homeland. Yet he had done so on terms that preserved honor. He had come for peace, he would say, again and again that summer. Now it remained to be seen whether the Wasatchu would honor their promises and whether the Thunder Dreamer could find a new purpose among his people in this changed world. For the man who had once ridden like living lightning against the soldiers, the war was over. The long struggle to hold the land had entered a quieter, more treacherous phase. The sun rose warm over the White River Valley on the morning of May 7th, 1877, bathing the newly pitched circle of northern Oglala teepees in soft, golden light. 3 weeks after the dramatic surrender, Crazy Horse walked among his people with measured steps, the weight of new realities settling upon him like a heavy buffalo robe. For the first time, he approached the Red Cloud Agency compound itself, a cluster of stockaded buildings, warehouses, and soldiers' quarters that now marked the center of their constrained world. Accompanied by He-Dog, he met Lieutenant Charles A. Johnson, the military agent. Later they stepped into Frank Yates's trading store, where the trader welcomed the famous war chief with gifts of blankets. Outside, amid the gathering officers, Crazy Horse spoke plainly. He was prepared to accept the Tongue River country, but his heart remained fixed on another site. "There is a creek over there they call Beaver Creek," he declared. "There is a great big flat west of the headwaters of Beaver Creek. I want my agency put right in the middle of that flat. Good grass," he noted, "and plenty of game." Only then would he travel to Washington to speak with the Great Father. From the agency bastion, clerks distributed annuity goods, rations, clothing, blankets. Women hurried back to camp laughing, arms full of bright flannel, calico, and stroud. Others gathered to learn new ways. Army packer Tom Moore demonstrated how to fry bread in skillets with flour. Army surgeon Valentine T. McGillicuddy visited Crazy Horse's teepee at the war chief's urgent request to examine Black Shawl. Her tuberculosis had worsened. The bloody cough and exhaustion demanded what care the Wasatchu medicine could offer. That same morning, Red Cloud hosted a grand giveaway. Agency scouts drove the surrendered northern pony herd forward, returning most of the animals to their original owners. Only the U.S. branded stock remained with the Army. Joy rippled through the camps as families reclaimed horses that had carried them through the bitter winter and the great battles. Later, the people moved to the beef issue station. Instead of accepting butchered meat, the deciders asked for live longhorns, so they might feel something like the old buffalo hunt. 30 stringy cattle were released. Hunters exploded forward on horseback, whooping with the old battle cries, riding with thrilling skill. Arrows flew, dust swirled, longhorns charged and twisted in desperate resistance before falling. Within minutes, the kill was complete. Drying racks soon sagged with red sheets of meat and loops of guts. For the first time in many moons, the camp lived fat on reservation rations. A week of feasting followed, dances, councils, and generous hospitality between agency and northern bands. Billy Garnett invited Crazy Horse and the Deciders to his cabin, The war chief sat awkwardly at the table on a chair, then quietly asked to be shown how to use a knife and fork. Away from public eyes, Crazy Horse dropped some of his reserve. He questioned the interpreter closely about the coming journey to Washington, the trains, the strange customs. By evening, Garnett felt certain the war chief was committed to the road of peace. Yet abundance brought its own troubles. Overeating unfamiliar rich foods felled many. Crazy Horse himself fell violently ill days after the Garnett supper, so ill that newspapers exaggerated he might not live. For several days he lay in his tepee, weakened but unbowed, even in sickness. When Colonel Mackenzie demanded the last hidden firearms, Crazy Horse rose. He moved wearily from lodge to lodge through the night, coaxing and commanding, until the remaining guns were surrendered by morning. On May 12th, a remarkable scene unfolded at Camp Robinson. Crazy Horse and 15 of his leading men enlisted as scouts. Little Hawk, Little Big Man, Big Road, He-Dog, Iron Hawk, and others, many from the Sorbacks and Hunkpatila, stood with hands raised and swore loyalty to the white man's government. Issued Sharps carbines and Remington revolvers, they formed Company E. Crazy Horse was named Top Sergeant, heading a cadre that included Red Cloud and Spotted Tail as fellow top sergeants under Lieutenant Clark. The uniforms and pay were practical, but for Crazy Horse, they also strengthened the northern voice within the tribe. He visited the agency infrequently, always with a bodyguard of 6 or 8 warriors. There, he sat in a chair while his men sat on the floor, quiet assertions of dignity and rank. Around him, the agency world revealed its changes: wagons, manufactured clothes, Red Cloud in civilian dress, tending cattle and chickens. Some northern families began small gardens of corn and beans. The reunion of the Oglala people brought simple joy for most, even as it tested the war chief's deepest convictions. On May 11th, a grand peace council filled a huge double tipi hosted by Chief Little Wound. Holy men invoked Wakantanka. Chiefs spoke for hours on lasting peace and reforms. Crazy Horse sat stolid and silent through the oratory. Then an old crippled man was helped forward. In a moving display of generosity, Little Wound removed his fine new blanket and gave it away. Others followed. When the singers began chanting Crazy Horse's name, the war chief stood. He stripped off his own blanket and garments, presenting them to the elder. His war pony was led in, reins placed in the old man's hands. A herald rode the camp circle, proclaiming Crazy Horse's greatness. The gesture revealed the man behind the legend, generous to the bone, even in reduced circumstances. Plans took shape for a great tribal sun dance at the end of June. Northern leaders pushed to unite their village with the Mini-Kanjus and Sans-Arcs still at Spotted Tail Agency. Transfers began, some official, some quietly arranged. Iron Crow arrived with lodges and was elevated to decider. Worm brought 4 more lodges of the Kaposia. The northern hoop grew stronger. On May 23rd, General Crook arrived at Camp Robinson. The following day, 600 mounted warriors drilled in precise platoons before the general, passing in review in fine style. Crazy Horse rode at Lieutenant Clark's side. When the chiefs dismounted before Crook, the war chief dropped to one knee, then rose and shook hands. 3 stars, he said. I have seen the white man. He is very strong. My heart is good. In the formal council inside the agency stockade, Crazy Horse opened the proceedings. He spoke of the tobacco that had brought him in, of the place he had marked with a stake for their future agency, of game and good land where all his relatives could live together. Young Man, afraid of his horse, Red Cloud, and others, endorsed the call for a northern reservation. Spotted Tail and High Bear added their voices. Crook listened, promised to forward their request, and spoke of completing surrenders before any delegation east. A buffalo hunt under military escort was floated as an interim measure. Later in the village council shade, the talks continued. Crook ate dog meat with the rest, earning goodwill. Yet, beneath the affability, Crazy Horse sensed delays and compromises. The promised northern agency remained uncertain. Sheridan and higher command resisted Crook's leniency. Still, the war chief held his peace. He had come with honorable intentions. For now, he would work within the system, uniting the northern people, strengthening their voice, preparing for the sun dance that might renew the sacred hoop. As May drew to a close, Crazy Horse moved among his people with quiet determination. Black Shawl's health remained fragile, but she had the surgeon's care. The village ate well, children played, old friends reunited. The war chief had laid aside his gun, as he had promised. He had enlisted, spoken for peace, and given generously. Yet in quiet moments, the old fire still burned, the unyielding love of the land, the dream of a free northern nation. The summer ahead would test whether peace could truly hold what war had failed to keep.
And that brings us to the end of this chapter of Chronicles of the Old West. As always, this series is a dramatized retelling grounded in real people, real places, and real events. We strive to honor the historical record while shaping a narrative that helps us feel the human weight of these moments. Some details are adapted for clarity and dramatic flow, but the heart of the story remains rooted in documented accounts and the lived experiences of the Lakota, Cheyenne, and their allies. Next time on Chronicles of the Old West, the long winter begins to thaw, but the world around Crazy Horse only grows more complicated. The northern nation, once united in purpose, now stands divided by hunger, politics, and the crushing realities of a changing frontier. New promises rise from the agencies, old wounds deepen, and as the people search for a path forward, Crazy Horse must navigate a landscape where every decision carries consequences far beyond the battlefield. The storms of war may be fading, but the storms of peace are only beginning, and they may prove even more treacherous. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Your support helps us bring more of these stories to life. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Chronicles of the Old West.